Hello, everyone. Welcome. My name is Cassidy Diamond. I am the Associate Director of Public Programs and Events here at the IDA. I want to thank you for joining us for our final screening series conversation for the film Missing in Brooks County. The conversation will be moderated by the LA Times, Robert Abele. Before we get started, I would like to offer a brief land acknowledgement. I'm coming to you today from Chicago, which is on the unceded land of the Potawatomi people, who have been stewards of this land for generations. I'd like to thank IndieWire for their support this year in bringing this series to all of you. And this is our last conversation, but you can go back and rewatch this conversation and all of our other 50 plus conversations on our website at documentary.org/screening-series. And we just want to thank you all for giving us your time and joining us and celebrating these great documentary films. And stay tuned for more from IDA. Without any further ado, I'm going to hand things over to Robert to get things started.
Hi, everyone, and welcome. I'd like to introduce this panel. First, we have the co-director of the film and producer, Lisa Molomot. We have the producer and editor, Jacob Bricca, with us. And we have Michelle Chinos, who is shown in the film. She's the sister-in-law of Homero. Thank you all for being here for this really powerful film talking about it, Missing in Brooks County. And I guess I'd be remiss if I didn't start off by asking you, Michelle, what the status is currently in your search for Homero.
Hi, yes, good afternoon. So we're still in the process of looking for Homero, and we will not stop. We're in the wait for Eddie to see what day we can go. Due to everything that's going on with COVID, a lot of things have been really slow at the moment, but we're waiting to go, look at new binders to see, to go and put posters again, like y'all saw in the movie, on the documentary, ask people around in Falfurrias, perhaps go to the water stations too, but we haven't lost hope. We're still in the look for Homero, and our biggest hope is and dream is to find him and to find him alive. But at this time we just don't know. We want closure. That's what everybody says.
Well, thank you for that update. Certainly, I think what you're going through makes me think that another title for this movie could have been, considering that this started with a policy called prevention through deterrence, the undeterred, considering the people who are just will not stop. And Lisa, could you tell me about how you came to this subject and learned about this and started making this movie?
Yeah, like so many documentaries, it sort of started out as one film, and as we learned more about what was going on in Brooks County, we pivoted. Initially, we were interested in the work of a forensic scientist, actually not the person who's featured in the film, but another forensic scientist. And we reached out to her, and we went to Texas and we met with her, and she brought us to Brooks County. And so we spent a few days in Brooks County, and we immediately, after meeting people and talking with people, we sort of knew just at that very first trip that this was going to be a much bigger project than we had initially intended. So I think we thought we were making a short. And, I think in some ways I'm happy that I didn't know what I was getting into initially, because I don't know if I would have continued on knowing what knowing what I was going to experience and see making this film, I'm not sure I would have taken it on at the time that I did, but I'm really happy I made the film. And we went back to Texas every few months for about 4 years. So once we really understood what was going on, we knew we wanted to make this film, and we just continued on. So that's sort of how it began. And we met Michelle, actually. It's pretty interesting. So we put up a very simple website for the film at one point while we were fundraising, and maybe she can tell the story of how she came upon us.
Absolutely. So, in a moment of, we don't know, where he was, and we still don't know. But I am always in Google searching. And I happened to find Missing in Brooks County, the page, and I saw the other story of Juan, and I'm like, oh my God, they're in our situation. And I just sent this long email with my brother-in-law's information, how long he was missing, where, like all the information that you can imagine. It was a long email. I honestly never thought I was going to have an answer back or a call or anything. What I would do, I would just, send information, a lot of research, but there's a lot of people in our situation that you never imagine that they're going to get back to you. And Lisa and Jeff did, and we were really surprised. And, that's how his story. And from there, you can say everything else, Lisa.
Yeah, I mean, we would get emails periodically from people searching for someone because they came upon our page, and we would immediately send them to Eddie Canales, like, this is the person you need to talk to. So we still do. We have something up on our website, like, if you're looking for someone who's missing, please call this phone number. So we do still get that. But when we heard from Michelle, it was, I guess it was just interesting because we were going to Texas the next week. So at that point in the filming, we had been filming with other families. And when we got the email, I sort of was like, oh God, not another family to film with. It was really starting to get overwhelming. The stories, the footage, the families, everything, all of the participants. But you can't say no. I mean, you never know what's going to happen. So we were going to Houston anyway. I mean, it was not, it was really easy to meet up with them, and we met at Starbucks, and I met Michelle, her husband, and then the other two siblings. And they went back and talked to their parents about participating in the film. And I think we were filming like the next morning. So it all happened very quickly, and we never looked back. No one ever looked back, I don't think. So it was just very, very lucky that we found them.
Yeah, I'm always interested in the, how you approach kind of like getting people to talk about such a sensitive topic. And I'm wondering if you could talk to that, Lisa, that how you earn the trust of people who have experiences that are, difficult to get into.
Yeah. So there were some families that we filmed with that we started to feel like they're not ready to tell their story. So just intuitively, you can tell when people are ready. And so we started filming with other families in Houston in similar situations. And then we stopped filming with them. And the Romans, I mean, we had meals together. They knew what we were doing. I think it's about building trust and honesty about, everything we're experiencing and seeing and feeling. And so, and that was true for everyone we were filming. And the thing is, we were going back to Brooks County every few months, but sometimes it felt, especially at the beginning, that we had to reestablish the relationships every time we went back because it had been 3 months or 4 months. And, it's important to spend time with people when you're not actually filming. and talking about things and really letting them ask questions, you know, having the time to ask questions if they're having them, you know, after filming for a while, like, are they wondering what we're doing? You know, like that came up, you know, like, because they were, you know, in Brooks County, they were used to having reporters come for a half a day or a day, even 2 days to report on what's going on. And we kept showing up and they're like, haven't you gotten enough footage already? Like it was a totally different beast than they were used to seeing. And so, you know, we got to know a lot of people in Brooks County, and we were definitely known, you know, by pretty much everyone. I think in Brooks County, it's a very small place. And you know, the person that used to work at the Dairy Queen, maybe on the next trip was working at the gas station, and they would recognize us and, hey, how you doing? So it's, you know, I think building trust and just also like being open and there to answer questions and not always have the camera with you, I think was a big part of what we did.
Michelle, do you want to speak to what that was like for you to kind of learn how to talk about Homero for Lisa's camera as opposed to, you know, like a reporter or something, and how you kind of like eased your way into that?
Right. So, you know, it was, I'm going to say this first, it was really tough for my in-laws, for my mother-in-law and father-in-law. You know, this is something that, you know, at first they were like, this is really hard for us. I don't think we can. But I told them, I'm like, look, you don't know what this can happen. I'm like, you don't know if Homero's out there. You don't know if he lost his memory. You don't know if the people that were with him can, you know, see his picture, his case and contact us, or, you know, anything can happen. And right now is the time that we have this opportunity to have, you know, everybody to see this film. And I mean, it's hard. It's really hard, I know, but I mean, you know, let's do it. And they thought about it a few hours, but they decided. And Lisa and Jeff, they made us feel like if the cameras were not there, you know, they were really professional. We felt, and we still are, with that we are in good hands with them. And so, you know, everything was awesome. As you can see, we will go, you know, to eat. When we were in Brooks County, you know, the cameras were there when we were with Eddie in the sheriff's office, but we didn't even feel them. Maylene, which is my daughter, you know, she was in the film too, and she was playing like if the cameras were not there. She was not like, oh, look at the camera, Mom, why are they recording us? Like, you know, she was like nothing. So it's it's the way they, you know, they are, that they really feel, you know, trust with them, and they really make us feel like if nothing's there recording us. So it's really, they did a great job.
Jacob, Lisa, can you talk about other unforeseen challenges that came up in putting this movie together? I mean, it's a lot of stories you're telling here. It's a lot of different moving pieces. It's a town. It's a political issue. It's people. Yeah.
There are, you know, to take one just logistical example, and then we can talk about the editing. You know, you see in the film this search, you know, the search that they go out on to yet again try to find Homero's remains, perhaps. And that's sort of how the movie closes. And they did end up finding remains. But because of all of the dysfunction that you see portrayed in the film, nothing really happened with those remains. I mean, nothing, like they permission, you know, they were just sort of sitting there, and there wasn't any testing that was going on. And in order for us to definitively just have something to say about, you know, for the family to know, and for the film to be able to say, this, it seemed unlikely, perhaps, like possible, but maybe unlikely that it was Homero, but you know, a DNA test needed to happen. So the film had to intervene and basically, you know, keep sort of pushing on doors and even spend some money to just get a private test. So things like that happened that aren't in the movie. And then just to put it together into a story that is possible to tell in 81 minutes, we did it took about 1.5 years to edit, which actually isn't a crazy long amount of time for a documentary, but it was a lot of work and a lot of sort of moving parts and pieces where, what I think Lisa and Jeff had shot and what their intention was to not only follow Homero's story and Juan's story, but also they shot a lot of other scenes, a lot of little vignettes of life there, and to sort of show how this policy and this issue affects so many, the ripples go out in so many ways. You have the person who crossed with Juan, whose life was clearly changed by that, and who says, if his family ever sees this, I want them to know that we did everything we could for him. We have people who, the Border Patrol agents who are clearly affected in a very profound way by having to do this work. And so to sort of show that ripple out and to give both a forward momentum of a narrative as well as sort of a mosaic was, it was a challenge to find a way to put all that together.
And then with the production, I mean, we experienced in very small ways what migrants would experience being out in the brush, this land that they cross, this desert. The ground is not solid, it's really thick sand. So when you're walking, it's not like walking on a regular road or even a dirt road. You're kind of sinking a little bit when you're walking. So it's very tiring being out there. And we spent a lot of time out on these ranches and, with snake boots and, in the summer in the South Texas heat, our, gear was melting, it's not hospitable, and it definitely challenged me physically. But I would say, like, emotionally, I think is really where the challenge is, to live with this story for this long and to get to know families like the Romans and see what they're going through. It really, it just makes you angry. And I think that journey from sort of, confusion when we first got to Brooks County, where's the border? We thought we were going to the border. No, we're 70 miles north of the border. Oh, okay. To, learning more and more with every trip what's happening and how serious this situation is and how long this has been going on and how many people and families have suffered, it really makes you angry. So by the time we actually finished the film, and this is true, I think of, Kate Spradley, who's in the film, the forensic scientist, we saw her journey with this because we pretty much started filming when she started working on all of this and working with Eddie. And I could see her, because it's harder to see myself, but I could see her become more and more angry with what's going on and more frustrated with the situation. And I think, it's like the more the more you just want to pull your hair out and just, it's unbelievable.
The tone of her voice changes. You can hear it. You can hear how more bitter and more irritated she is by the end of the movie.
Yeah. And we tried to show also, Eddie begins the movie, and actually, sort of by disposition, he's a pretty sunny guy. And he sometimes chuckles and sort of makes light of things, but his most serious scenes come towards the end as he's listening to Kate talk about this botched repatriation and the walk that he takes after the story of Juan's death is told, where he just sort of walks in the cemetery a little bit. And he knows, in that when we shot the raw footage for that, he's talking about what that cemetery is like. People come here a lot and leave flowers. It's a tight-knit community. But we were more interested in sort of the silent moments where he just reflected on, he just sits and reflects, and he too, everybody sort of has their way clearly of dealing with the everyday trauma there. But we sort of tried to show a little bit of an arc of his experience as well.
There are some difficult scenes in this film, things that you're not expecting to see that suddenly you see. And I'm just kind of wondering how you wrestle with that, how to show that kind of I mean, I'm talking about what Eddie comes across, and yeah, so if you could talk to that, that'd be great.
Yeah, initially with the first cuts of the film, that scene comes much later, or came much later. We didn't want to put it at the beginning of the film. We were like, people are not going to be ready to see this at, the first 5 minutes of the film. But as we began screening rough cuts, it became clear to us that we really needed to set the stakes of what was going on here for people to be invested in the story. So eventually we did move that scene up to the very beginning of the film. Yeah, I mean, I wasn't expecting to see that when we found, I mean, that day of shooting was kind of a throwaway day. Like nothing was happening that day. Like some days of shooting are good, some aren't, and we just have to be patient and wait for things to happen and for people to call us back or, things like that. And that day, it just wasn't a great day. Nothing much was happening. We were hanging out with Eddie and he was not in a great mood, I don't know. It was just not a great day. And we're like, okay, Eddie, we're going to go get you some dinner. Cause I know I'd spent enough time with him to know that when he gets cranky, he's hungry. So we went out to his favorite restaurant. We got him dinner and we came back and he's like, well, why don't we go out and scope out this area of this particular ranch, because I think that's where we should do the Omero search. And we're like, great, let's go out. So, and he's like, I'll, put some water out too. So we were just out really location scouting, and we saw the vultures and we knew probably that we were going to find something, maybe a dead animal, or, we didn't know. So, and we were out there for quite a long time because we had to wait for Border Patrol to come and other people. And yeah, we were all very, very disturbed by that. And so I feel like the audience also experiences it that way. It's just very disturbing. And it makes you so angry. And, but that, that is what happens in Brooks County. I mean, it's not to find a deceased migrant like that is not unusual. And
we did do a lot of both soul searching as well as consulting with people about the depiction of those kinds of images. And we, a lot of consideration was put into precisely how much you see and how you see those things. And that we arrived at what we arrived at. The film is what it is, and we're comfortable with it. But we didn't do it lightly. We had plenty of conversations with people from lots of different communities about how they felt about that. Was it respectful? Was it necessary? Was it, because you could go in a lot of directions. You could say that it's unnecessary to do that, and that you shouldn't have to. And then you can also say that if you don't do that, you aren't getting across the actual gravity of the situation. You're not actually depicting what people go through on a daily basis when they're out there finding things. So that is just all to say that we thought a lot about it. And one reason we didn't put that scene right up front is because we sort of assumed that might feel sensationalistic somehow. And by the time we were finished, we felt like we had found a quiet, respectful way to depict that scene.
Well, to my mind, it's powerful because at the beginning, since you're not expecting it starts to tell you the story of what you're doing, and then the time when you get to the second time you show it, you have now learned about families searching for people. So your mindset is now like, who is this person? I want to know now who this person is, and I think it's like telling the story. Mm-hmm. Can you talk about the ranchers and trying to get them on film and what that experience is like?
Yeah, I think we were already filming with Dr. Mike Vickers, the veterinarian that you see with the puppy at the beginning. We were already filming with him, I think, on the second trip to Brooks County. So we filmed with him a number of times. He did make time for us, but we knew that he had started this group, the Texas Border Volunteers, and we wanted to film the Texas Border Volunteers. And so every time we met with him, we would ask him, can we film with the Texas Border Volunteers? And he would say, well, I need to talk to the board and discuss it with them. And we're like, okay. And then the next time, or, we'd call him and say, hey, can we film with the Texas Border Volunteers? I still need to talk to the board. So this went on for quite a while. And I'm like, he is never letting us film with the Texas Border Volunteers. But eventually he did say yes. So I don't know what changed. But eventually he let us go out with them. And he knew what we were doing. We didn't hide what we were doing at all with him. And but he believes so strongly in what he believes. He believes he's a victim of this. And he is, in a sense, he is a victim of the policy because he has people coming through his property. And, there is damage sometimes to their property, but it's not the migrants who are to blame. It's this policy. They are forced to go around the checkpoint. And so, he believes very strongly in what he believes. And all of the rest of the Texas Border Volunteers as well. So they weren't that shy about being on camera. And we didn't hide from them what we were doing. So it was kind of interesting. Like, it wasn't really as hard as you would think in a way. We just had to keep asking, basically.
I found it very interesting that in the scene with the paramilitary members at the night vision, that one of them says their hope is to see a group that they can get arrested. And not their hope isn't that nobody's there, because you'd think that would be their hope, right? That they wouldn't see anybody. Their hope was to actually see people arrested, which I thought was very revealing.
Yes. There's another part where it's not in the film, but where they talk with disappointment after a night when nothing happened. Like, well, maybe there'll be some action tonight.
Yeah. I was fascinated by Dr. Kate, you mentioned earlier, and that her graduate student team of what looked like all women.
I know.
Was that a surprise to you?
That was a surprise to me. And, we would ask, are all forensic scientists women? And they're like, well, there's usually one man, one guy. I don't know. I have no idea. I never really got to the bottom of it, why so many women are attracted to that area of study, but they are. And there was often maybe one guy around, lucky guy, or I don't know, poor guy. But no, it's really so interesting. I have no idea why that area of study is filled with women and no men. And but we don't explain it in the film. I still don't really understand it, but it is interesting.
Michelle, I'm wondering, when the movie was completed and you saw it for the first time, what did you think?
Honestly, I cried. I cried like a baby. It touched my heart. Even at the beginning, you can see how hard it is to see, that body there, because what came to my mind was that Homero a few years ago? It touched everybody's heart, because you're like, wow, like this is true life. This is what's going on in Brooks County, and seeing Homero there, seeing everybody, telling his story. It was really hard for me and for everybody to watch, but I cried a lot. It's something that is so hard to, even right now, so hard to explain. And every time that I've watched it, I cried. Like when we went to, when y'all came here and we went to the Lisa, when we saw it at the theater here in Houston, I was crying. Everybody was crying. it still, gives us a really impact, because especially not knowing where Olmedo is. It's 6 years. So for us, it's really hard every New Year's, every Christmas, every Mother's Day for my mother-in-law. My daughter is still the Olmedo's first niece and only niece. So, she loves her niece. So not having him on her birthday, and not having him on all these special holidays, it's hard for us, because we know that we're here, but we know that there's somebody missing, And like my sister-in-law said, Olympia in the film, sometimes we feel like, are we supposed to have fun? Like knowing that he's not here, it's hard. It's really hard, but life has to keep on going. And all we can say is that we haven't lost hope, and we will continue, and will always continue to look for Olmedo.
Lisa, Jacob, has the film been shown in Brooks County? I mean, I know it's got a TV.
Yeah, we actually, we went to Texas in August, really before even the theatrical release of the film. We went to Texas and did a whole tour. We started in Houston and went to San Antonio and down to McAllen and Brownsville and a whole bunch of places along the way, and ended in Brooks County. And we had actually 2 screenings in Brooks County. We had an evening screening and we had a daytime screening. The daytime screening was the big screening, but we wanted to have an evening outdoor screening that was COVID safe in case people didn't want to do an indoor screening. And it was interesting. There was a ranch owner there that we had never met, but we had filmed on his property. And we talked to him before the beginning of the screening. And, there have been more migrant deaths this past year than any time since the Clinton administration began this policy. So it was a really bad summer in Brooks County. And he wanted to know, when is the film going to be on PBS? And we said, well, not until January. And he's like, it's too late. It's like, this is a crisis that's happening now. And we're like, yeah, we know, we really wanted it to be on earlier, but it just didn't get programmed earlier for, a variety of reasons. But, that was, he is a very conservative person. But he does let Eddie put water stations on his property, and he was there to see the film. And I watched him the whole time watching the film, and he was leaning in. He didn't check his cell phone one time. He wasn't, he was really taking it in. And unfortunately, I wasn't able to talk to him after the screening. So I wasn't able to follow up, but I really, and there were some people from the community that were saying to Eddie, we didn't really understand what you were doing, and now we know, and thank you so much for coming here and doing this. There was kind of a lot of that. We were very suspicious of you when you first came. We didn't really understand what you were doing, and I apologize for, being suspicious. There was quite a bit of that. So that was really interesting.
I'm wondering what kind of reactions you've gotten from like immigration activists on both sides of the aisle. What have you been hearing?
We have a lot of partners that we've been working on an impact campaign with. I don't think anyone wants to see people die. So this is not a divisive issue. I think everyone wants this to be resolved in some way. So there was actually a bill that was passed in December of 2020. It was the first piece of legislation that was ever passed that actually helps people like Dr. Kate Bradley and people doing searches, giving money to resources to help with this crisis. And it was actually signed by Donald Trump. and it was a bipartisan bill. So people from both sides came together to make this happen. So in that sense, like, I think this film is not divisive. I mean, I don't think we did it in a divisive way, and I don't think this topic is divisive. I don't think anyone wants people dying. So, you know, we have a lot of people helping us with the impact campaign. We're very lucky. We're filmmakers. So that's a good thing, because we need their help. They're the ones working on this issue and have been for a long time. So we, you know, we're very grateful that people have been jumping on board to help us with the film. So
Oxfam, Red Cross, Western Office on Latin America. We had a screening recently with Border Patrol, some leaders in Border Patrol, Customs and Border Patrol, and then some just sort of rank and file agents. And the response was, we'd like to look into showing this more widely, you know, amongst more agents. So I think that the, you know, immigration issue in a larger sense is quite divisive, but the idea of this consequence and of this going on is something that there's quite a bit of agreement on, actually.
I was wondering if you were to, I know this was a long and hard movie to make, but if you were to make a part 2 of this movie, I mean, whether it's with the footage you already have or what you would want to go out and shoot more of, what would you want to show?
Well, there are many scenes that are not in the film. Some of my favorite scenes are not in the film, but I don't think that they will ever make it into any film. You know, it's sometimes like filming, you know, it's interesting. I'm glad we filmed the things we filmed, even if they didn't make it into the film, because I felt like it was a really interesting life experience, some of what we filmed, but ultimately didn't really serve the story. But the part 2, I think that I'm particularly interested in is this area between the US-Mexico border and the checkpoint, which is called the Golden Cage. And it's an area where some migrants who do not want to make that journey through the desert are stuck for years or the rest of their life. And it actually creates very dangerous situations. For example, we met a woman who she crossed the border, she's undocumented, and she was experiencing domestic violence. And she couldn't go to law enforcement because she's undocumented. She couldn't go to her family because her family was in Houston. Well, they were in Mexico, some of them, but then the rest had made it to Houston. And so she was stuck in this area by herself, experiencing domestic violence for years. She finally went to law enforcement because she had to. And now I think she was actually, they're allowing her to go to Houston. I think that they're, you know, after a bit of time, they were able to figure something out. But, you know, that area is I'm very, very interested in what's happening in that part of our country.
Yeah, I mean, a film about the Golden Cage, I think, would be really interesting. And there's other stuff that we just didn't get into in the film, which probably wouldn't be in another film, but is fascinating. So, for instance, you get a tiny taste of it. You see how the family was preyed upon by these people who are trying to extort money from them. And that is a pretty common practice where, you know, like we have one officer, he's the one who just says, the county's broke, we don't have any resources, it's good that we have these volunteers out here doing this, you know. In another part, when we filmed with him, he said, yeah, you know, I go out there every day and there's these cars, they just go back and forth on the road, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. They're looking for people. And basically they're looking for missing people so they can pick them up and say, hey, we want to help you, you know, tell us your contact info of your family. And then they make extortion calls. And then the family who is looking for hope is wondering what they should do, you know, and of course they are reluctant to call law enforcement because they've got someone who is undocumented and they don't know what might happen if they were to call. So the situation creates a lot of unresolved, a lot of dangerous situations where the people who are real criminals out there aren't suffering many consequences because of where the focus is in our policy.
It's too big a question to ask, you know, how you fix a problem like this, but what's a first step for like even a place like Brooks County that they could do? And everybody can answer that question.
Well, I guess I'm the one to answer that question. Yeah, it's a big question. I mean, regularizing immigration, having people, when they come to the border, have some kind of system where they can put their name in a database and be tracked. I think that could happen. I mean, there's so many resources right now going to, law enforcement at the border or in Brooks County. Those people could be working at the border and letting people come in. I mean, we do need workers. We have a worker shortage here. And there was always an irony for me, filming in Texas, because, we would go to the bigger cities like San Antonio and Austin and Houston while we were filming. And those cities are booming and they're growing because they have labor. And, the labor is needed. So that's, one thing to think about. When I think about Omero's story, I think about, all of the people that are deported unnecessarily. And, if, unless someone, commits a grave crime, I don't think those sort of deportations are really, there's no reason for it. Omero was in Houston his whole life. He came to Houston when he was 5 years old. That was his home. And, he was deported back to a place that was not his home. So those sort of situations don't need to happen. And in terms of, what else could happen? I mean, I think we need to start again with our immigration system. I mean, in working on the film, we were like, well, if they move the checkpoint back to the border, but then there are more resources at the border. So then there's just going to be another kind of, danger created by that. And I just feel like we really need to think about how we, think and talk about immigration in this country. And we really need to think of it, think of our neighbors as human beings. And this problem isn't going away with all that's going on in the Northern Triangle and in Mexico in terms of, corruption in governments and cartels, and it's not going away. And then with climate change, we're going to see a lot of immigrants coming because of climate change. So this isn't a problem that's going away. And so we really need to rethink how we're thinking about it.
Lastly, Michelle, how would you like people to be left what would you like them to be left thinking about if they see this movie?
It's tough. It's something really hard that people have to cross to have a better future. They're coming here for a better future. But I would just say, that look at our situation and to think about it twice. But sometimes we end up doing it because we want a better future. We want a better future to our family and staying in our countries, all the violence, drug cartels, domestic violence. It's hard. So the last resort is to come to the United States for a better future, for family, family that have children. They want a better future for them. But sometimes, crossing, it's tough because, you can end up losing your lives for coming here and having a better future. So I would just say that, all I can say is, Lisa just said everything. She said, we definitely need some change and, to care about our, neighbors in Mexico, and hopefully something can be changed so people won't be dying and have, love each other and be together. And I mean, everybody's human. So I mean, now that's all I can say.
Well, Michelle, I want to thank you for sharing your story here, for sharing your story with Lisa in this movie. I wish you only the best in your continued search. Hopefully we have humane policies coming down the pike that will help things. And Lisa and Jacob, thank you for making this wonderful film, and certainly the best of luck in getting it seen far and wide. And so thank you everyone for joining us for this conversation about this wonderful film, Missing in Brooks County. So good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.